Greg Chick here, Ramona's Plumber. Today we're going to talk about PVC pipe, joining the fittings, doing it correctly. It's so commonly done and so many people do it, but so many people make so many mistakes. We're going to see if we can narrow it down and learn how to do it correctly. Okay, some of the mistakes I was referring to are definitely not limited to this, but here's a few of them. This is a piece of plastic from probably 1.5 inch fitting, and the blue solvent was used. It's not a two-piece solvent, meaning primer and solvent. It's supposed to have the primer mixed in with it. That's why they call it. That's why they make it blue. But anyway, primer was not used on this, and you could see because there's the absence of the purple stain. The blue solvent was used on the socket and on the pipe that when the pipe was pushed into the socket to the end of the socket depth, there was so much left over that it was pushed over into the rest of the unusable, not the socket area, but the fitting. This volume of solvent being used is what overheats the plastic, causes the plastic to crack. This fitting, that's what happened to it. It cracked. Not only that, the solvent joint did not occur because this PVC here did not join with the pipe, or it could not have separated. Done correctly, the PVC pipe or the fitting becomes weaker than the joint itself. The joint should be the strongest portion of the bond. The seesawing of the pipe into the socket, you can see that effect there. That's not really the way to do it. The way to do it is just a third spiral. Enough about this particular fitting. Just a couple other examples of too much solvent on the pipe and on the fitting. Push the solvent to the end, puddling, and then at this port, the same, and then so much solvent gets in there, the fitting gets overheated and cracks. As well, there was no primer, and the person using this was thinking that the blue stuff, because it was blue, was as good as primer. It's not the case. Obviously, the pipe is still white and the solvent is blue, and the two are not fused together or solvent together. This is another blown apart fitting. Another example of poor solvent joining is right here on this fitting. The pipe wasn't cut straight if you look at how that pipe is cut, and it wasn't pushed into the socket all the way, and you can see how the solvent has built up at the end of the position where the pipe had been pushed into the socket, and there's a significant amount of solvent puddled in there that's hardened. You can also see that the solvent has not formed a solvent joint with the pipe and the fitting, or they wouldn't have separated. But because of that, this pipe was pushed into this. Let's see if I can find the spot where it probably was. Yeah, probably there. But anyway, you can see the gouges in the pipe. Right there, those little notches. The pipe. This joint was so bad that it leaked, and the water at high velocity gouged into the PVC. Well, this was a leak for a long time to do that, and then it eventually blew apart and caused even a bigger mess. But this is from not chamfering the end of the pipe and not cutting it square and not using a two-piece primer and solvent and not pushing it in all the way and not rotating it about 1/3 of a turn and holding it until the joint sets up before you let go. This is a classic poor joint. Now here's another example. I know I'm picking on the blue stuff, but if a little is good, more is better, right? No, here's a piece of 1/2 inch Schedule 40. Too much solvent was used here. I think actually on this one somebody had thought that if you put it on the outside that it'll make the joint better. This obviously had some heavy sun exposure, which made it brittle. I forget the real reason that I pulled this out, but it was a problem or I wouldn't have been there. Just another visual example for you. And now for cutting the pipe. There's a couple of different methods and ways, and we'll look at a few. Now here is a quick and easy way to do it. You just grab one of these and cut it. A little more than that. You put the pipe in the jaw, and rather than having it in there crooked, you really take a second to let it line up. Once it's lined up, you squeeze a couple times like that, and you get a fairly straight cut. Now what you don't get is a chamfer on that cut. So if you push that into a socket, it's going to push all that softened plastic from the solvent to the end of the fitting. So what you do is, if you use these, you just use a cone. Now there's a couple of different kinds of these. This is an old kind. I've had this myself since 1973. You can see the curls of PVC that come out of the tip of that cone, and then you see the chamfered edge. Now the flow on the inside can also be affected by the sharp edge and create some turbulence. So this cone goes inside and cones that as well, giving you a smooth surface on the inside and the outside that will not excessively puddle the solvent at the end of the joint. And that's using a cutter. Now there's always the stick it in the trench little hacksaw. Now these tend to let the blade wobble and skate. It's best not to use this on water mains, plumbing work. If you're outside in a sprinkler system, you know, on thin wall pipe, you're not going to have that much labor with this thin blade, and it'll work. But you just go ahead and cut it like that. It's great. Now if you've got to use a saw, here's another saw, a stronger, larger hacksaw, more professional grade, with a tight blade, with the teeth of the blade going either forward or backward. Forward, it cuts when you push. Backward, it cuts when you pull. The pull method is the preferred method in PVC and the way it's done in Japan. But when you cut with a hacksaw, you still need it square. You still need it perpendicular. And a miter box is used for that, or you can, if you're skilled, you can get a square cut with a saw by hand without a miter box. But you still, after a saw cut, where's an example of a saw cut here, you still need to cone it, chamfer it, take the sharp edge down on the inside and the outside. There's larger cones for larger pipes and even larger. Now for the proper solvent joining of a PVC fitting and pipe. Shake off the excess drippage there, which is oh so fluent and drippy. Do the socket first. I tip the socket down so that the extra dribblings don't go all over the place. Tip the pipe down as well. And I don't need to primer it. When it comes to the primer, you could primer a little more than you need to. That's okay, but not in the socket. On the pipe, yes. On the socket, no. But time to apply the solvent. It's important to get all the extra solvent off of this brush tip. You don't need puddles of it. In about 80-90% of the way, full 360, but it doesn't have to be all the way in the socket. Socket first, pipe second. All the way around, full circle. And then when I insert it, I'm just going to put about a 1/3 twist, and I'm going to insert it perpendicular, you know, real square, like that. You see that inside there's not a puddle of primer or glue, solvent, all over the inside of the fitting. The correct way to do this is fairly easy and quick if you just play by the rules. Thanks for watching. Can you do it? Yes, you can. And I can help. RamonaPlumber.com